Devlin, Untamed.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
The Platform.
iOS, it's only sport. Martin Devlin, Lachlan War. Big topic of conversation today has been about Mark Robinson, CEO of New Zealand Rugby's comments about the NPC. He's given up on it. It's dead to him. He thinks the competition is over. Is it? Well, not for the rest of us, it's not. Also, the guy sits there and he kind of acts as though none of this has anything to do with him. You've been in the job for 4 years, mate. 4 years you've been in the job. You've presided over this, whether you inherited it or not. You are responsible for where it is at the moment. That, plus Intermac out for France. Western Force want to sign Payne. Us, what? Neymar's off to Saudi Arabia. Spain, Sweden tonight. We have lots to talk about. But as always, tablets in hand, I say gather my flock. It is time for a sermon. Mark Robinson, please resign as CEO. Let's go to the mountaintop.
We live in an amazing, amazing world, and it's wasted on the crappiest generation of just spoiled idiots.
NPC rugby is stuffed. It's official. It's a goner. Who says? Well, the CEO of New Zealand Rugby, that's who. In a gobsmacking admission on Sunday night's The Breakdown programme on Sky TV, Mark Robinson boldly stated the National Provincial Championship cannot continue in its present form. It's, I quote from him, not fit for purpose. This is an incredible admission. The boss of our national game has just admitted it's totally in the crap, and he doesn't have a clue how to fix it. I don't know what's worse, the reality of where the comp is, or the fact that the guy in charge is acting like, oh, this is new news. Oh, I didn't know about this. Like he's been unaware that it's been on the slide for years, and he's got no idea at all of how to revive it. Because that's who he is, Mark Robinson. He's a guy who should be working in a government department somewhere, creating email trees, doing his management speak. I don't know what to do. Let's have another review. His corporate butt-covering style would be absolutely celebrated and appreciated working for the government. This is not a personal attack on Mark Robinson. Far from it. He's a nice guy. But so what? He's also hopelessly out of his depth as CEO of New Zealand Rugby. He should never have got the job, and events over his tenure have continued only to prove that. Is New Zealand Rugby in a better place now since he's been CEO? Is the future of New Zealand Rugby in this country in a better place now since he's been CEO? If you answer no to either of those questions, then no, he shouldn't be in the job. Where is the Peter V'landys? Where is the get stuff done guy in New Zealand Rugby? The truth is he doesn't exist. Robinson says the provincial unions need to abandon the high performance and focus on community rugby with zero product to sell. So how exactly is that going to solve the situation? How is that going to improve the game in the provinces again, Mark? Clearly there is no place to be one, and clearly time is of the essence. New Zealand Rugby has every egg it owns in the All Blacks basket. Every egg. If we don't win the World Cup, then what? And this was made abundantly clear by a tweet from the official @AllBlacks Twitter account over the weekend. They had Rowan Atkinson as Mr. Bean, acting like he's really bored on the side of the road, and he doesn't know what to do because the All Blacks aren't playing. What? The All Blacks aren't playing? Well, shouldn't that be the absolute impetus to start promoting the domestic product then and encourage all those fans who are missing the All Blacks to get out and sample it? Instead, the national administration pretends like it doesn't even exist. They tweet something that says, we're not even aware that the national provincial competition is underway at the moment. They don't care enough about it, and they don't care enough to even acknowledge it. And he expects the country, as us as fans, to continue to support it? I don't know what's worse here, people. The admission that the country's key domestic rugby product is a loser, or that the guy in charge has absolutely no clue at all what to do to fix it, and he's been there presiding over this for 4 years. Either way, the future of our NPC looks roughly about the same as the Aussies' prospects of winning this upcoming Rugby World Cup. We are stuffed.
Devlin.
What do you want? We want information. Information. You won't get it.
The Platform.
What is in the sports news?
I'll start off with probably the most relevant news to New Zealand rugby at the moment involving another country, that being that France first five Romain Intermac has been ruled out of the Rugby World Cup due to a knee injury, robbing the tournament of one of its star players and the tournament hosts, and in many ways probably the favourites, or one of the two favourites, I think, alongside Ireland. ridding them of one of their key players. I mean, this is like the All Blacks losing Dan Carter at the 2011 World Cup, which, I mean, we ended up winning it, but still, at the time, it was like, heck, okay, we're in some serious trouble here. But Intermac ruptured cruciate ligaments in his left knee in the second half of the 30-27 victory over Scotland in a World Cup warm-up. The NRL could lose another high-profile name to rugby union, with Brisbane Broncos powerhouse Payne Haas reportedly targeted by the Western Force. His contract is expiring at the end of next year. NRL regulations allow Haas to explore his options and potentially sign somewhere else from November 1st this year. He's already knocked back a 4-year deal worth more than $1 million per season to stay with the Broncos. I think it was actually a 3-year deal, $3.5 million over 3 years, so I think this article is actually wrong. The Storm, Melbourne Storm that is, are also understood to be interested. According to the Courier Mail, the Western Force will throw their hat into the ring to lure Haas to Perth. If he goes to the Force, well, good riddance. It's a stupid career move, sorry, Payne. Obviously, this tugs at my heartstrings being a Broncos fan. Excuse me, Manchester United opened their English Premier League season with a nervy 1-0 win over Wolves at Old Trafford this morning. Now, Martin, I thought you guys signed a bloke called Mason Mount in the off-season.
Yeah,
Why didn't he play today?
Apparently he was wearing the number 7 shirt. I watched the game, I didn't see him touch the ball.
He started, apparently.
Apparently so.
Yeah. Brazilian forward Neymar is headed for Saudi Arabia after Pro League side Al Hilal agreed a 2-year deal with Paris Saint-Germain. This has got to be one of the most failed careers when you factor in the excitement and expectations of what Neymar could have and should have become.
He's soft, mate. He is soft. He's soft as a person, soft as a player, mate.
Do you remember Michael Orr, the former NFL offensive tackle? He was the star. Well, he wasn't, but his name and who he is essentially was the star of the film The Blind Side that came out in 2009. The guy rags to riches, drafted in the NFL.
No,
have you not seen The Blind Side?
No.
Sandra Bullock won an Oscar for it.
Oh, that's right. She adopted him. That's right.
Yes.
Okay, yeah.
So the main guy.
But the story's all poop, isn't it?
No, it's not all. It's true.
Is it true?
Yeah, but well, listen here. So Michael Orr, who the player in question, filed a petition overnight in a Tennessee probate court accusing Sean and Lee Ann Tui, the parents who adopted him, of lying to him by having him sign papers making them his conservators, rather than his adoptive parents nearly 2 decades ago. In the petition.
What's the difference?
Well, I don't know.
It's got something to do with whether or not they cash in on his...
Something like that, yeah. Or asks for the conservatorship, I'm really struggling with this word, conservatorship, to be terminated, along with asking for a full accounting of the money earned
here we go.
off the use of his name and story.
Okay.
He also asks to be paid what he is due, along with interest, or who has never been a fan of the movie of his life. Also asks in the petition that the Tuis be sanctioned and required to pay both compensatory and punitive damages determined by the court.
And he also wants Sandra to be his real mother?
Probably. He'd probably rather that. Well, he didn't like the film. Didn't like the film. And finally, FIFA World Cup, the semi-final between Spain and Sweden's on tonight at Eden Park in Auckland. I doubt there's any tickets available. Kickoff is at 8 o'clock. I went to the quarterfinal between Sweden and Japan on Friday. Awesome game. Brilliant atmosphere. Really enjoyed it. I was the only guy who was standing up chanting, "Go Sweden." Everyone else was sitting down and behaving themselves because it's a different sort of crowd to maybe your rugby or your rugby league crowd. But anyway, should be a cracker of a game. And my social football tonight has been cancelled because of it. There's no social football on because everyone might be going to the game. Well, I still want to play. Anyway, that's what's making news, Martin.
Devlin.
Oh my goodness me!
The platform.
The NPC is not fit for purpose. Who says that? The CEO of New Zealand Rugby says that. A lot of people remain unconvinced. Let's kick it off. Justin Marshall, former All Black, 81 tests for our country. Grew up playing NPC, loves it. The major story in New Zealand sport at the moment, which has blown up over the weekend, the CEO, Mark Robinson, saying, it is not fit for purpose, the NPC. What is your initial reaction when you heard those comments?
Well, first of all, disappointment, Marty, because, I'm a traditionalist. I came to the system, club rugby, onto Southland, and then got my opportunity at Canterbury. And I really feel that's the infrastructure of New Zealand rugby, that we have a niche that no one else in the world does have, that we can get club players into provincial sides and turn them, if they are good enough, into professionals. And the fact that the format is struggling is not a surprise. I think we've all seen it bleeding in recent years. But the fact that they are now scratching their head how to fix it is a bit worrying for me. I think it should always be a huge part of our game. It's really important to inspire club rugby players to take that next step should they have a good season and play for their province.
Look, it was so disappointing to me. The man's been in the job for 4 years. It has been obvious to everyone who loves the game in this country that that the NPC needs help. It needs something, and yet he kind of acts as though this is a major surprise. What the hell's happened? Surely as the CEO, the responsibility comes back to you as the guy in charge, doesn't it?
Well, I think obviously he's only inherited it, and he's inherited a problem. There's no doubt that it's been going on for longer than a couple of years, that ever since Super Rugby decided that we would play 2 rounds and, there's just more volume in Super Rugby now. There was going to have to be some format that suffered, and unfortunately that's been the NPC. They've messed around with it too much, trying the 2 different structures, with the top tier and bottom tier and all that sort of carry on. I was always a bit dubious about that. I didn't like it. I didn't feel that enabled some provinces to learn to grow. Yeah, it might not be nice getting 20 or 30 points put on you, but you figure out why and get better. That was something that I wasn't a big fan of. Now they've changed the format. They're not happy with it again. Look, I have sympathy, simply because I know that they are working really hard to try and keep everything together, and Silver Lake obviously has injected money, but the deal was all around making sure that with Silver Lake we got the provinces on board, and now it's like, but it's not working and we're going to have to scrap this and do that or look at it and whatever, and it's a bit concerning, isn't it?
Look, when he turns around and he says, the provincial unions have got to stop concentrating on high performance and start focusing on community rugby, well, that's all. I mean, these are all just management speak words. Explain how you meant to do this. If I'm the CEO of a provincial union, what am I selling, Mark? Exactly. Tell me what I've got to sell if I don't have my NPC side to sell. What else is there to sell?
Yeah, I agree with you. No, I don't agree with the community rugby. I certainly feel that is important and it's a part of the program, and should always be. But what you've got to do is inspire players to win and be winners and win titles and win and go out and challenge for the Ranfurly Shield and win the Ranfurly Shield. Like, we all play the game because, yes, we enjoy it, but equally because we want to get success out of it. We want to grow. You want to celebrate with your friends. You want to have that camaraderie. You want to have that satisfaction of achieving, and it might not be a title, but a win might be making the semis, for a team like Southland, for example. So I feel that, we need to just continue to create a format that makes the players want to go out and play for their province, makes them want to be successful, and motivates them to play. And, they've got to look at the whole infrastructure. They've got to have a look at why there are not people turning up to going, but the current economy will be a big part of that, So, mate, I'm really interested. Now, you'll probably be able to help me here because I know how passionate you are about Wellington, but I've never been to the Hut ground where this Ranfurly Shield game is this weekend. All my time as a player, as a commentator involved in the game, it's the first time I'm going to the game. I think they're offering $10 tickets for people to go along. Pretty much only standing. I don't think, is there a grandstand there?
Well, okay, define grandstand. Look, okay, so if you're driving around Matoto, mate, and you drive past a bit of an old rickety race course, and there's a bit of a kind of a scaffold, that's the kind of grandstand it is. Justin, it's a fabulous ground. I went and watched the Phoenix play there a few years back when they couldn't use the Cake Tin. I watched an FPC game out there the other weekend. I think Wellington were playing Counties Manukau. You'll be standing, the spectators will be right behind the rope. They'll be screaming and spitting and snarling. You can smell the hot dogs. The players will love it, mate, because it's like, it's the same as the Oniwa domain. This is what I believe, that start local again. I know that you're big time. You went down, to one of your rugby club celebrations. I did the Kura 125th. The communities are interested in rugby. They're interested in their own players. They're interested in the club side of it. From there, you build the NPC side, but you make it absolutely local. Start it small again. Get 2,000 or 3,000 along. Get the kids' bouncy castles. Get something out there. Get some food tracks. Get people coming along. Make it free. Make it an event people want to go to in the afternoon. That's how you start again. And then when it starts building up, build it up from there. Mate, here's an incredible stat for you. Last financial year, the union spent $277 million. Now, that's $100 million more in expenses than last year. $100 million more, and yet the NPC's stuffed and they don't know why and there's no money for it. I'm sitting here at a loss going, you're running this bloody company. How can you spend that much extra money and this competition is dying?
Yeah, well, that's fascinating. I didn't know that, and that is, again, concerning. When you spend money, you want to spend it so that we make the game better and we grow the game, and equally they grow their business and make it a good, profitable business. And if they're spending that sort of money and still complaining about the fact that things aren't right, then it makes you wonder where that revenue is going. But, mate, I absolutely concur with what you said. I think getting people back interested in the game because you're not hitting them too hard in the pocket. You're giving them real close access to the players, like in big stadiums when there's only 3,000 people going along. It's empty. It doesn't feel like it's got any character. It doesn't feel like there's a great atmosphere. And hopefully they can't spit on them, like you said. They can reach out and touch them at the weekend. But take the games, into the community, because that's how you grow the community as well. Get these players going out there. Yes, it's only 3,000 or 4,000, but the ground is full, and it'll feel like 15,000.
There you go.
And start to make the players love playing again and love playing in their community and being well supported. And again, people can afford to go.
To hear the full interview, download the platform at the App Store. Via Platform Plus, you can go back and listen to the whole show and all of the interviews in full.
Next!
Minister of Common Sense time.
We need to talk.
We need to talk.
We need to talk. Next!
Lachlan, if you were Bunnings, what would you do right now? Would you be on the phone to Mark Robinson and saying, hey, dude, you have just absolutely garroted the competition that we have given you all this money for? What the hell are you doing, mate?
I'd be certainly rethinking what my money's pumped into. Certainly. Because for Bunnings, as a sponsor, as a corporate partner, what your goal of linking up with a competition like this, it's purely eyes on screens, your, what do you call it? I don't know.
Association factor. You want people who like this to go, oh, well, it's the same as people who support us on the platform. Yeah. I want people who support us to be supported back.
And it's the same with ads being put into primetime slots on a radio show, but using Hossing, for example, or Sean in the platform's case. When you get those companies or those voices on, you're getting the most ears on speakers or eyes on screens, and that's what matters. If there's no one watching it, and you've got the head of the governing body coming out and saying, oh, we need to change up this competition.
No, it's not fit for purpose.
It's not fit for purpose. If your buddy's going, well, hold on,
there's nothing more dismissive than saying that.
Why am I giving you guys money to
if
give you naming rights? If you were
saying that to an employee, you aren't fit for purpose, you're showing them the door.
Yeah. Well,
goodbye.
You may as well be firing
It's over.
Yeah.
That's what he's saying.
Yeah. So if you're Bunnings, you're sitting there going, well, hold up. Why am I pumping my money into something that no one's watching?
Huh?
Nah, stuff it. I'm not doing this. I'm going to go work with the Warriors. I don't know.
Can it be fixed, the NPC?
Yes, it can, but it can't be fixed by doing what they've done to Super Rugby a couple of times now and what they've done to the NPC as well, is changing up the fixtures or how often one team plays another, or when there's a premiership and a championship and a relegation promotion system.
Well, no one even knows, anymore what it is. I mean, look, I tell you what, we do this for a job. 2 weeks ago, the NPC kicked off. I didn't even know.
Well, I
didn't even know. And the other thing was, I didn't even know what the format is.
No, I don't either, because they've got one table, 1 through 14, but then they still refer to the championship and the premiership.
Yeah.
So what's what?
What is
I don't
what?
get it. Is it a it's... Yes, there needs to be a time. We've talked extensively about this. You got to think. You got to imagine that this essentially is a house that is burnt down. You're not plugging up some holes. You're not changing the paint to make it look more appealing. You're not getting some wallpaper. You're not putting in a few extra plants and flower boxes in the backyard. The house is burnt down. You've got to build it back up. And if you're going to build it back up, at least in this sense commercially, you can't worry about money, because the way you get money is consumers. You don't have the consumers, so you can't assume you're going to make money without it. It's like opening up a shop and having no products. Going, oh, but you'll buy something from us. Well, what am I buying? You haven't got anything in your store.
Next!
There's nothing here.
Are the right people in place at NZ?
No. There's nothing to...
I have zero confidence in any of those people. If I was a member of this is the whole thing. It is up to you, the 27 provincial unions. You are the ones who are now responsible, because those people in Wellington are hired and employed by you, and you've got to get together as a collective and do something about this.
Yeah, but I would say...
But that's where the problem is.
This is you said you received a text before from someone where they essentially sound like they were trying to blame the provincial unions from what's gone on. How much power or voice do the provincial unions really have?
Well, I think in these days, in any corporate situation, which is what you've got, if you've got 27 separate voters on a board, you are never going to get anything
But you're
done.
never going to agree.
You're never going to agree.
So then what it requires is a boss, essentially, of them or of NZR, kind of getting their thoughts going, cool, nice, but I'm still going to do what I think the right thing to do is.
Peter V'landys.
Yeah.
But Mark Robinson isn't that guy. Mark Robinson just has no leadership skills.
No, but
he has no vision. He has nothing at all that makes you look at him and go, wow, I'll follow you. Peter V'landys, I don't even know Peter V'landys. And half the stuff he says I think is a joke. And look, you remember during COVID, he was the first to stand up and say, I'm going to resurrect this competition.
Yeah.
I remember guffawing on here and saying,
Operation Apollo, whatever it was called. I'm going to get the competition up and running within 2 months.
He single-handedly did it.
And
Where is this person in New Zealand rugby? All we've got is butt covers, KPI box tickers. All of you should be shuffled off to Sport New Zealand. That's where you belong. Rewriting other people's emails and having meetings all day. Who is the person that's standing up and going, this is the vision? When Mark Robinson got appointed, what was the very first thing he did?
He called a review.
He called a goddamn review into everything to do with New Zealand rugby.
Yeah.
Where's that review?
Yeah. And then he called another one. He called another one not long after into Super Rugby.
Well, but there'd already been one.
And then he called one into the All Blacks at one point last year.
And then into the Black Ferns.
Into the Black Ferns World Cup campaign. They won. Why? Why did
Show
you...
some friggin' leadership.
What
you
are
get
you
paid hundreds of
reviewing?
thousands of dollars to be a boss, mate.
I'm less critical of them, of not so much Robinson, but the rest of the people at NZR who supposedly...
Do you know what I liked about this particular person who texted me? Is that I used to work in an industry where the boss was in that office down there, right? And this is the thing that I absolutely sucked about the last place that I worked. There's a layer of middle management. You could never get anything done. And my God, that middle management increases. Every time there are redundancies, there are more people that end up in middle management. A boss used to be in the corner. Hey, more often than not, he told you to F off out of his office and he wasn't interested. But the fact is you could go into the office, you could throw an idea at him, and maybe you might get an yes if you convince him, but at least he could
yell at him
make
or
a
something.
decision.
Yeah.
And Mark Robinson, you are incapable of this.
Next!
Last question before we go on to the football. Much more of this to come during the show, ladies and gentlemen. Vent your spleen. Because I'm not prepared to let this national provincial championship die in this country. I'll stand there and scream from the sidelines if that's all I can do. And so should you, if you believe in it. I don't want to give up on rugby.
No.
I don't want to give up like you, the CEO. Have you've given up? Leave the office. Get out of the office and go somewhere else then, mate.
The second text is great. There's no name to it. Hi, Marty. You witnessed how much people care about rugby when you were in Kūrau. Just about all those supporters could run the bloody union. Piss Prairie pops into mind, scoreboard operator. But he's right.
Yeah, the guy there, he was the guy that ran the scoreboard. He was brilliant. The whole the scoreboard. But look, the 300 people that night raised $45,000 for that club.
45,000.
45,000. They had never seen a board member on the sideline. They've never seen anyone from Otago Rugby on the sideline. They've never seen anyone from New Zealand Rugby. They do it themselves.
And this isn't a wealthy club in a big populated place like Auckland.
It's a tiny little town in the middle of nowhere. And they raised $45,000 because people care.
And you had someone like Richie McCaw, who's as famous and lauded in this country, and as our, kind of we like to call him the king of New Zealand in a sense, but this guy who's recognised
Captain
around the world
Aotearoa,
as
mate.
well. Yeah, that's the best way to put it. Captain Aotearoa, who went down there himself as well.
Yeah. For no money.
He doesn't think
I did
he's
it for
too
no
good
money.
for it.
Macbeth did it for no money.
Yeah.
Matt Gunn did it for no money. I paid my own airfares. I paid my own rental car. I went down there.
But you
I
had a
wanted-
bloody good time,
Had a
didn't you?
fantastic time and met all those people. Look,
See, that grassroots level of New Zealand rugby is and will, not New Zealand rugby, of New Zealand in general, is and will be pretty damn all right. I mean, you've probably only got about 10, 15, 20 years up your sleeve because then, generations shift on. It's just the manner in which, and this is where actually getting rid of the NPC is going to be really bad, is if you actually, if you cut out that middle layer of it, then the link between what you think Super Rugby is going to become whether you have the Blues, as an umbrella over the Auckland Provincial Union, who have an
No one's
umbrella
watching
over,
Super Rugby, mate.
I know, but
No
who
one's
are
watching it.
I'm more thinking of the link in the pathway from the very bottom to the very top.
the
If
whole
you get
point-
rid of the NPC, you get rid of that entirely.
the whole point of New Zealand Rugby is to foster and preserve the game in this country, right? So all of you who are employed by New Zealand Rugby, if you aren't achieving that, get out of your jobs right now. Your job isn't to catch a plane, 5-star it, business class it at the World Cup and hobnob it. But we'll be over at the World Cup and I'll be reporting, and I'll tell you what we'll be doing. I'll be filming every one of these people from the board and from New Zealand Rugby on the largesse. That's what I'll be doing, and I'll be filming it and
should
sending
question them as well,
Sending it back to New Zealand. We'll be confronting them and sending them. Who are you? What do you do? Why are you here?
Yeah.
How much is this costing? What is your role? How is New Zealand Rugby benefiting from you sitting here having another free meal? Thank God we're going, ladies and gentlemen, because this is what I'm going to be spending your money on. Taranaki coach Neil Barnes with his thoughts on Mark Robinson's comments about the NPC not being fit for purpose. Here's a guy who has coached his team to 3 victories in 9 days at the start of this year's competition, and don't forget, knows Mark Robinson well because Robinson was the CEO of Taranaki Rugby. Neil begs to differ. Mark Robinson's comments about the NPC being not fit for purpose, Neil, what does that tell you? What is your response to that?
Well, the first thing I'll say is I haven't actually heard the full interview or whatever it is to know what it was, how it was said and in what context, but I 100% don't agree with the NPC's not fit for purpose. NPC is there as a semi-professional environment to sit between club and professional rugby. And our job is to provide players and coaches the opportunity to hop into a professional situation, see how you go, and then take the step up into professional rugby. So I don't know what part people are implying it's not fit for purpose. I don't know where that comes from. So, like I say, I haven't been given the background of what those comments were.
Part of it also it revolves around, can the unions afford it? Can the provincial unions sustain it? It's not fully professional, but in your mind, how essential is it?
It's absolutely essential. I would never, ever have had a chance to grow as a coach. And when I look at it nowadays, there's all these players coming out of professional rugby environments and internationals that are walking straight into Super Rugby. Mate, they've got no core or base to work from. And yes, they might technically know bits about the game, but you're handling a large group of people with different personalities, trying to get them all on board and pointed in the same direction is an art, and it takes time to develop. I actually feel sorry for the people I coached when I was really, really young because I was a dictator, and it wouldn't have been much fun. But you soon grow and learn that you've got a job to get to know all your men and know what ticks the boxes with them and try and encourage them all in one direction. Otherwise, you just splinter and go all over the show.
How big a deal is that for you to actually admit that, though? Because, that's what a man does to me. A real man actually sits here and goes, hey, I might have got that wrong.
Yeah, 100%. Like, none of us are perfect, but no one's perfect now either. But what I am saying is, like, we've got a great competition that sits in between club level and professional rugby that develops people. And I could go on and on about people that have never made age group sides or been in New Zealand 20s.
Brody Retallick. Brody Retallick's one of them, mate.
Well, that's going back a bit. I can give you heaps more since then. But these people pop up in club rugby, and since I've come back, like if I just use Daniel Rona, for example, my first year back, pouring concrete, he didn't even hardly got a game for us in the first year, and then he's playing for us last year. He gets an injury replacement gig with the Chiefs and now has a contract. That's what the competition is there for. But unfortunately, we have a whole system now where people are supposed to be identified as they come out of the womb, go into academies, and they walk into your environment like they're entitled to selection and positions all the time. Well, to me, the whole thing would be better run if they come through the club situation, earn their stripes, get an NPC contract. They have to have a job as well, so there's your professional development. You learn to work and put some work boots on and do a friggin' 40 or 50-hour week. And then when you get a professional contract, you've got some form of work ethic, and when you come out of rugby, you've got something to go back to. But just chucking them in academies where they lie around all day, do their stuff, think they're going to get selected just because they turn up and they've been selected before, doesn't work for me. They have to earn it.
To hear the full interview, download the platform at the App Store. Via Platform Plus, you can go back and listen to the whole show and all of the interviews in full. Lachlan, it is time.
Next.
We're going to play a game called...
We need to talk.
Whatever.
Whatever.
I don't like the game where we need to talk. I just get told off. I don't want to play this game.
The game is
watch
called...
the cricket, please.
What has more chance of happening?
Next.
I'm going to present you a scenario, Lachlan, and you're going to tell me out of the two of them what has more chance of happening. What has more chance of happening? New Zealand Rugby and Mark Robinson come up with a future-proof plan of how to fix the NPC.
The other one. And I'm telling you now, I am picking the other one on every single one, every scenario you present to me.
Or Spain and Sweden goes to penalties.
Spain and Sweden goes to penalties. That is much more likely.
I think there's a chance.
Yes, there's more of a chance than Mark Robinson and New Zealand Rugby actually thinking of a way to future-proof NPC to make it successful and sustainable for decades to come.
I think Spain and Sweden. I think this is one of these games people prepare
you
for extra
say it like
time.
You're surprised. You say, I reckon they've got a chance. Do you really think the other one could happen? Come on.
What has more chance of happening, Lachlan, that Mark Robinson comes up with a future-proof plan of how to fix New Zealand rugby, or Shane van Gisbergen leaves supercars
Shane van Gisbergen leaves supercars.
and he races full-time NASCAR. He races full-time NASCAR next year?
I actually think that's quite likely.
Yeah, same.
Because there's a guy, Will Brown, I think he currently leads the Supercars Championship. Apparently, he has either requested or been granted an early release from his contract with Erebus, and the rumour mill suggests that he's going to Triple Eight to replace Shane next year.
What is more chance of happening, Lachlan? New Zealand Rugby and Mark Robinson come up with this brilliant new plan to resurrect the NPC.
No.
Or Payne Haas signs for the Western Four. Oh, come on.
I think
you
it's
can't
more
present this
likely.
as serious sports news,
I think,
New Zealand media.
I think it wasn't on a... Oh, was it on New Zealand?
It's on the News Hub. It's one of those websites I saw.
Oh, yeah, okay. It must have been on News Hub that I got it off then. I think it is more likely that Payne Haas signs for the Western Force than it is that New Zealand Rugby, with Mark Robinson at the helm, think of a way to future-proof the NPC so that it becomes successful and sustainable for years to come.
I am going to ask you, Lachlan, what is more chance of happening? The CEO of New Zealand Rugby, Mark Robinson, unveils his brilliant plan to save the game in New Zealand. Or I admit Wolves should have got a penalty this morning.
You already did. You said it before the show started. You said that was a penalty.
Okay,
so
right.
that's already happened. Thank you very much.
Okay, right.
Geez, you were stubborn over it, though, when I got into the office this morning.
What is more chance of happening? That Mark Robinson just comes up with the most genius idea to save New Zealand Rugby, or he admits that, yes, he's dropped the ball, he's let this happen, he's very much responsible, and he resigns his post. There's more chance he comes up with a plan to save it
Probably,
than
actually.
have the cojones to say, I'm not the guy that can.
If you said that he just resigned...
That would be leadership, Mark. For you, I'll tell you what, this would be the first thing you've ever done called leadership would be to actually step away from the job and go...
Stand there, admit you've done wrong and resign.
It's too big for me. I can't cope
Actually,
with this.
yeah, I'd say him actually thinking of a way to make the competition better. But the thing is, if he did, he's not the guy thinking of it. Someone else is. He's not doing anything.
No, he's not.
He's sat
He's
there.
Not. He rings up members of the media and asks them, what would you do?
Yeah, well,
That's what he does.
Yeah.
What would you do? What do you mean, what would I do? I don't work for you, mate.
He'll sit there in the office. He sits there watering his plants and kind of watching YouTube videos on meals to cook at night time or things to do in Luxembourg when he travels there thanks to his job. He's been sitting there doing that for 4 years while the NPC is not on his TV.
No.
And he's let it die. Now
That's
he's
it.
sitting there going, oh
my
heck.
God.
He
That's right.
finds the to-do list from 2019 when he got the job.
Where's the dog gone? It went outside for a pee 4 years ago.
yeah.
God, is that stinking thing down the bottom of the...
It's dead. Oh, that's
shite,
NPC.
That's right. What is more chance happening? Mark Robinson, New Zealand Rugby, come up with this brilliant future plan for how to fix the NPC, or the Warriors win the chip?
The Warriors win the chip. That's
Warriors have got a chance of it. They've got a chance
They've
of
got a
winning the
chance.
chip.
Well,
Right,
they're in the top. If you're in the top four, you get what's
Two bites at the cherry, right?
You get a second life essentially,
Okay.
don't you? So no, the Warriors have a really good shot. The thing is, what if Melbourne finish fourth and Penrith finish first? Right away, Melbourne could certainly win that opening game in the finals, and the Warriors could certainly beat the Broncos in the first week. Don't think they will, but they certainly could.
Have they got the team to beat the Broncos? Okay, let's go back to that game in Napier, because look, I think that a lot of that game was. I think a lot of people misinterpreted that game. The Warriors came back really late, but I don't think Brisbane were in trouble at that stage. Mate, I mean,
we'd won it by then, but also we weren't bad, but we didn't have our best team that night. We were missing a couple of guys because it was in the Origin period. We didn't have Reece Walsh for starters, and we played a lot of second string guys. So I mean, I don't think that's a good representation. And the Warriors were awful for the first about 60 minutes.
Yeah, but I mean, look, okay. Warriors aren't going to play Penrith or Melbourne or the Broncos again until finals.
Yeah, until the finals.
Potentially finals. And these are the three teams. Got to beat one of those teams. Beat one of those teams and put the others on notice. Finally, what is more chance of happening, Lachlan? Mark Robinson and New Zealand Rugby do... I mean, I can't even say it. I mean, I can't say it because I don't believe it. They're not going to come up with a plan about anything, are they? A text has just come in from Jamie who says, it's more likely Payne Haas is going to sign for the Southland Stags. See, now you're getting it. Now you're playing the game.
Well, yeah.
What is more chance of happening? That Mark Robinson is the guy to lead us to the promised land, or Dan Carter comes out of retirement to play number 10 for France at the Rugby
Hasn't he come out of retirement about 3 times?
Actually, he did, didn't he?
We kind of did when he played for the Blues, but then someone said he's not
that's when
actually
he's
retired.
playing for the Blues. He hasn't actually
yeah,
retired.
but he
Come on,
kind of
and then he kind of retired. Then he did that
retired from
charity
New
thing. Then he
Zealand
did a
rugby.
charity. Then he did another
Yeah, and
book.
now he's got 17 books.
And so what? You know,
Yes, that's more like. And I saw him on a podcast the other day. There was a video of him talking with some other former rugby players with coffee. And just Dan, go into the sunset. Just
please,
wave goodbye.
That's it. You did it. We love you to bits, mate. Women's World Cup football, first semi-final tonight. Another sellout at Eden Park. It's been an amazing success. But break down the two teams. Spain, a lot of passing, a lot of tricky, a lot of attack, a lot of pace. Sweden, pragmatic, physical. It's a real contrast of styles. Worldwide caller Simon Hill was hit with his thoughts ahead of tonight's game. Simon Hill. So he joins us ahead of the game tonight. So good to have you back, mate. How are you calling it? Who's going to win this game?
Well, to be honest, I think Sweden have got to be the favourites. I know Spain have attracted a lot of attention and they are a good side, but I just feel as though Sweden have been there for so many years without actually getting over the line and reaching the major finals. So I've got a sneaky feeling that Sweden are going to do it tonight, but we shall see.
Simon, it normally comes down to who's tightest at the back, who's calmest at the back. They've conceded a goal against South Africa. They conceded one against Japan after they were up a couple. Other than that, it's all clean sheets. How important is that?
Yeah, massive. I mean, they've got a very solid side, Sweden. They're physically imposing. Their central defensive partnership between Amanda Illerstedt and Magda Eriksson, I think, is arguably the best in the competition. And of course, Illerstedt has the added bonus of scoring goals as well. She's on 4 for the tournament. She could even win the Golden Boot, which should be the first defender in history to do that. But and behind them, I think they've got the best goalkeeper in the tournament as well, in Zecira Musovic. So yeah, I mean, the old saying is that strikers win your games and defences win your championships. So in that regard, I think Sweden are pretty well set. But again, they could come a cropper tonight. Spain have got lots of talent in attack, some terrific players. Bonmati, Hermoso, Putellas off the bench potentially, and Parayuelo, the girl who came off the bench and scored the winner against the Netherlands in the previous round. So, let's see how they deal with that attacking threat tonight.
Both teams in this knockouts phase have gone through one extra time game. So it's not like somebody else has got more tired legs than the other team. But I just look at that 0-4 to Japan result from Spain, and Sweden beat them 2-1. And I know it's not apples and apples, sure, but that's sticking in my craw at the moment, those two results.
Yeah, that's fair enough. I think there is a bit of context to that. The fact that Japan and Spain, by the time they played that game, were already both through to the next phase. Now, I'm not saying that is the entire reason for the results, far from it. But they did make a few changes. So I don't know whether you can read too much into that. They've recovered very well since, and they stuck a fair few goals on Switzerland to get through in the round of 16. So, yeah, I don't know. I think it's it's a very tight proposition tonight, but I just fancy that it's Sweden's time. Sometimes when you have this good generation of players, it takes a while for you to make the breakthrough. But I just got a sneaky feeling Sweden might do it tonight.
Do you think it's going to be an open game, or is it going to be too tight and tense, the actual occasion for that?
Again, it's difficult to know. I mean, in the previous round, Sweden sort of set their stall out to stifle Japan. That's not to say that they played defensively, far from it. But they sort of bullied them in midfield. Now, maybe they will try and do the same thing against Spain. But is that going to work? I don't know. Spain are probably a more physically equal team to Sweden than Japan were, with the greatest respect to Sweden. So it could be a fact that, we'll get a cagey game because the two teams will cancel each other out. Do nerves play a part? Spain are in their first ever World Cup semi-final. So this is uncharted territory for them, whereas Sweden have been there before on several occasions, but have lost every single time. So, does that prey on their minds? There's a whole range of factors, I think, that go into it. I hope we'll get a good game. I hope there'll be a few goals and that it's not, 0-0 going to penalties. But sometimes that's the way it is in World Cup football because the stakes are so big.
Episode 50 of the ATM podcast. Mark Watson apologised to me. The NPC is dead. He won't let it be buried. He's rucking mad.
I still go back to Steve Chu and those that were before him in terms of just running this NPC into the ground. Everything now is just a cash grab. Everything's about the All Blacks. Everything's about the machine. And I just see more money coming in. We've got this exhibition test match coming up at Twickenham where I'm sure both sides will put out average sides and they'll somehow say that it doesn't matter if you win or lose, which again is appalling in itself. It's all about making the money. Where is this money going? I don't see the money going into the clubs. You talk to the clubs and they all lack quality facilities. None of them have lighting. There's now a demand for them to build changing rooms for the women's game. The game is basically broke at every level below the All Blacks. The only people that seem to be making money now are the administrators. The only people who seem to be making money now are the players and the Players Association. And I've just had a guts full of it. We need the NPC. So we get rid of the NPC. What have we got? How do we pick our Super Rugby sides? Where do we draw that talent pool from? Where is the aspiration for young players? One of the real strengths of New Zealand rugby has always been schoolboy rugby and has always been the fact that we've got that additional layer of professionalism. So we've got the All Blacks, we've got Super Rugby, and then we've got the NPC. I mean, if he actually had any else, he would go and ask people what they want. Most people just want the NPC instead of Super Rugby. They want the NPC to be developed like the NRL, like what we see with the English Premier League. Yes, not an easy thing to do, but it requires just a little bit of vision and some time and some smart people around the table. It just infuriates the hell out of me, Martin, when I hear this stuff. Yes, can the unions afford to be paying a lot of money for the NPC, for these professional players? That's a discussion. I'm sure a lot of players would be more than happy to play for minimal money, knowing that it's an opportunity, a stepping stone to higher honours. Most people playing NPC are playing it for the right reasons. They want to represent their province. They want to, as I said, hopefully end up picking up a Super Rugby contract. And, it's a vital part of our game. But I want to know, what's New Zealand Rugby doing? Where is the money for these unions? It's all very well pointing the finger at the unions saying, your job is to develop talent. Your job is to put your finance and resources into grassroots. Yeah, but where is the money from New Zealand Rugby? Where is all this money from the All Blacks?
Well, also, what do they have to sell?
Almost
Mark,
so bloody
what do they have to sell?
Mark.
Okay,
Bankrupt,
tell a provincial union that you should be investing in community rugby. Well, what can I sell then, Mark Robinson? What is the product I have to sell? How can I possibly get a return off this? Here's a couple of facts for you, mate. This last financial year, New Zealand Rugby spent $277 million. That's more than the income they received, and that's $100 million more in expenses than the previous 12 months. Yet, there's no money for National Provincial Championship in that extra $100 million. They just flew the Black Ferns, business class, 30 of them, to Ottawa to play a game against Canada and the United States where no one watched. They've thrown $22 million at women's rugby and another 6 managers to create pathways. Again, if this is where you want to spend your money, don't turn around and tell me there's no money for the National Provincial Championship. There is money. You have prioritised the All Blacks. You're now prioritising the Black Ferns. That's all you care about. That's our podcast for today. Thank you so much for listening. If you want to listen to the entire show, 1 till 4, Monday to Friday, download the Platform app, and via Platform Plus you can go back and listen to whatever shows over however many weeks at your leisure, at your listening pleasure. Platform Plus. First thing to do though is download the Platform app.
Devlin.
Unbelievable! Incredible!
The Platform.